Hello, friends. Uncle Marv here with another episode of the IT Business Podcast, recording live in Orlando, Florida at Zero Trust World 2025. And joined here by, let's see, new friend as of what, a year ago, Brian Weiss? Has it been a year?
I think so, yeah.
So it's marred by one incident where he saw me in Colorado.
Of course you're going to bring this up, sure.
Well, it's more on me than it is on
Yeah.
you, where he walked up to me. I'm standing in line to check in, and I'm talking to somebody, and Brian's like, "Hey, how are you?" And do I know you? So,
Well,
my bad.
When you're a celebrity, Uncle Marv, you can't keep track of everyone.
I'm not a celebrity at all. I'm just easy to recognize.
Easy to remember, too.
Yep, that's true. That's true. All right, so you're here. Let me ask the same question I've asked everybody to start. What do you think of the conference?
Yeah, this is my first year here. And
Really?
yeah, I missed last year's, unfortunately. And I'm actually impressed with it. It's not like your average conference. It doesn't feel salesy. There's not a huge vendor pavilion. There are a decent amount of vendors here, but it's not like overwhelming with vendors. And it's not just all about ThreatLocker either. It's really focused more around Zero Trust. They've got a lot of cool hacking labs here that kind of dive into common playbooks, threat actors might be using and how, how you would reproduce that and see it live in the real world.
Really big on educating everyone on, hey, this is what we're protecting.
Yeah.
Not really about, this is what we do, but I mean, there's some of that. But I was sitting in the media room for lunch with some other media folks who they cover technology, but they don't cover our space. And they're kind of new to ThreatLocker, and they were talking about what they were learning. And that's what this conference really, to me, has set itself apart as, being able to teach other people outside of our space, here's what we do, and here's why.
Yeah, I would say another difference too that I actually like, because we're in the co-managed space, so we work with enterprise, is there is actually enterprise IT departments here that use ThreatLocker. It's not all just MSPs, so it's a nice mix and change up to be able to get to network with other IT people that aren't just MSPs, right? They're also working inside of IT departments for larger enterprise.
Now, part of your client base is enterprise, so that probably is a nice transition for you. It's probably easier for you to talk to them than it is for me. So have you had those conversations, and have you learned anything from them outside of what you've learned from your clients?
Yeah, I mean, we sharing ideas. I feel like enterprise IT, they're not too much different than an MSP, other than the fact they have a single environment versus multiple, but they tend to have similar challenges. I would say typically they're limited by budgets and team size more than anything when I hear about some of their challenges where they feel like they'd like to do more. And that also kind of rings true too for the MSPs, because a lot of the times we're limited on how much we can help a client based on their budget, right? And then a lot of times we have issues scaling properly or getting the right skill set because we don't have a big enough team size, and we're trying to figure that out. So,
Okay. Let's go ahead and transition to this, because I can't find a better way to do it. But I was surprised to hear that this was your first year, but you are heavily into ThreatLocker. So I'm about a year and 3 months in. So I love the product. Of course, it's a different perspective from a boutique MSP to someone like you, but tell me how deep you're into ThreatLocker, both from your MSP perspective and from your position on the advisory council.
Yeah, it's a great question. We do have about 6,000 licenses that are deployed right now. We're looking to double that in the next few months. As far as the modules go, though, we are fully licensed for the unified package. We believe in every module.
So that's everything, right?
Yep, that's everything. Well, except for some of the stuff that was announced today, which we'll
okay.
figure out what that looks like. I do know the web control is likely going to have an additional cost because it makes sense that
Right.
it's dealing with that extra traffic. I believe everything else won't have an extra cost, but as far as ThreatLocker does so much. It's you typically start off with the allow listing, the ring fencing, right? And you're moving to elevation. That's kind of the path we've chosen, and then we're going to network control. Actually, right now we're working on the Office 365 integration and getting all those policies set up for our clients. Then we'll move to network and data storage control. They've got their SharePoint integration, which is also great for the storage control. Really allows you to have it in the unified audit log, all of your file movement across the whole organization, right? Whether it's on the endpoint or in SharePoint, OneDrive, you can see it all in one place.
Yeah. So real quick, because I noticed because network control, I would have thought would have come before some of the other stuff. You did not implement that in the beginning?
Not in the beginning, mainly because the products we were displacing with ThreatLocker needed to be addressed first.
Okay.
Because there was kind of this idea of, hey, we don't want to pay for two products doing the same thing.
Right.
But you're right, that's fair because network control does have the ability to stop threat actors in their tracks, right? Especially when it comes to laterally moving across the network.
Right. Okay. All right. So I probably stopped you in mid-track there. So.
Yeah, I mean, we were discussing kind of where are we at with implementation, and I was just explaining, we don't have it fully implemented, but we know enough about all the modules where we've created a roadmap on how we want to implement it. And with our fully managed clients, our small business, by the way, it's just one package that we sell. So it's like they're not getting part of ThreatLocker. Once we have it fully deployed, everyone gets the full stack. And even when we work with our enterprise clients, we really just sell it as a unified product. And I think for people listening out there too that might be thinking about the idea of piecemealing it, it is the cheapest, just buying the whole package. If you are going to piecemeal it, don't leave out Cyber Hero support. I mean, I feel like that's something that I've been pushing ThreatLocker to just require and not as an option. They naturally aren't requiring it because they want to offer the flexibility.
Right.
But I wonder if there's a lot of MSPs out there that might accidentally set themselves up for failure without having Cyber Hero support, at least the first year,
So I don't have it.
Well, you also, have you done a full deployment yet?
Well, not the entire stack, but
Yeah.
I've got I've got the application whitelisting, I've got the elevation, I've got the network, and the storage.
Okay, so we can dive into that, and I can, explain my theory behind the value. But I'm curious, without Cyber Hero support, what do you feel like? What's like the total cost of ownership around ThreatLocker as far as, you've set it up? Are you personally dealing with the requests that come in, and do you feel like you're getting to them in a timely manner?
You know the answer to that. Yes, it's me personally dealing with
Yeah.
it. So for those that don't know, by all practical purposes, I'm a solo tech. I do have subcontractors, but I deal with all of the ThreatLocker stuff. And to be honest, I will say this, hands down, my noise level since implementing ThreatLocker is probably 50% less noise. I mean, our phones just don't ring.
Wow.
And I only have one client that will have maybe more than one request a day for elevation support. And it's one of those typical clients where they get medical records and surveillance and stuff, and all of those are just so many different versions. You can't whitelist them all.
Yeah.
So other than that, it really hasn't been an issue for me. Now, granted, I did a very long learning mode, and when I do have issues, we, tackle it the best we can. Now, I have had to call for support, but maybe 3 times
Yeah.
since I've had it, and they've been helpful. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that I wanted to be the one learning it. I didn't want to just, leave it up to cyber heroes to take care of it for me. I
Sure.
wanted to know what is happening under the hood. Why are these requests coming in? What can we do to, alleviate them? What changes do I need to make in my practice? That was stuff that I wanted to know. I didn't just want to leave it up to them.
Yeah, maybe the fact that you're a solopreneur, I like that term, by the way,
Okay.
lends itself to where, maybe you don't have as many devices under management, so that you might not see a delta or an issue. I'm surprised you're getting 50% less calls. And I'm curious, did you have a product before ThreatLocker that was handling anything like
Well,
this for
no. No, and I
Oh,
went
okay.
through the process where I was considering CyberFOX as
Yeah.
they were. That's actually where I was going to go originally because I just wanted the elevation control.
Yeah.
But it was when I got introduced to ThreatLocker and it was all the other stuff that came with it.
Mm-hmm.
I figured, you know what, I'm going to choose this because there's more upside down the road. And that's not a knock on CyberFOX. So I know CyberFOX has not been happy with me, but it was just what I thought was best for my business going forward. And with all the things that are just now being announced,
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, there is a total package being built around ThreatLocker that I'm already looking now at 2 other stack items that I can get rid of and consolidate under
Yeah.
ThreatLocker.
Yeah, I'm just wrapping my head around your situation.
It's unique.
Well, yeah, and it's, I mean, an explanation around it. I wonder, do you have a lot of things changing in your clients' environments at all, or do you feel like, hey, now that you got all these whitelist policies set up, there's not much else new going on where it might trigger a lot of?
No, there's not a ton of change. I mean, we obviously there's the employee turnover. Probably the best way to explain it is most of my clients are law firms. They don't change that often. Like, they don't upgrade when they're supposed to. Their client billing programs. I mean, that's part of it. And every time we go through an upgrade, yeah, it's some challenges, but yeah, my clients probably are not as dynamic as others. The other part of that is I've got a relationship with my clients where they don't just do things on their own. So even my 2 co-managed situations, I'm still the network administrator for those organizations.
So your clients are well trained, is what I mean.
They listen.
Yeah, no, those are outlying factors that I don't know that I'd be pushing you, feeling like you need cyber hero support based
But
on
I
what
thought
I'm
about it
what I'm
because
saying.
if I, double my endpoints, and I mean, and here's the truth. My endpoints are, as of today, I think I'm around 400 plus, which is a lot. But I've got the co-managed situations to help me.
Yeah. Yeah, for us, just kind of diving back into my earlier statement, how I think it should be required, and we just found out a scenario where maybe it's not required, and talked about that. For me, it's really, we're a 12-person team. We manage only about 800 endpoints from fully managed, but we've got, another 5,000 or so under co-managed, and then we have VAR clients. That's like
Okay.
another 6,000 that we're trying to move to co-manage. And for us, what we were running into is, and of those 800 endpoints, it's like 40 clients, right? So you have 40 different environments that, you spend the time in learning mode and you build out as much as you can, but then depending on how many apps the client's using, those apps need to be updated.
Yes.
Right? So those are new policies to roll out. There might be changes happening maybe more frequently than others with certain clients, and anytime there's a change, there's an aspect. And what we're finding is IT teams get busy, and I love that they called that out on stage today. IT is busy. They're not lazy. They're busy. And so what can happen is work can stack up,
Yes.
and then you're trying to rush through it. What we found is that we were approving things, at certain layers where it was causing repeatable work down the road. And we found as we kind of course corrected and said, you know what, let's not feel like we have to be the front lines here. Let's lean on Cyber Hero. They're actually helping us craft a better hygiene within ThreatLocker.
In the way that things get approved, or
And at what layer, right? Is it device? Is it, group,
Or
organization, global, like how much duplicate efforts might be we have been shooting ourselves in the foot with because we could have processed things better.
that was probably a big key when I understood that I could elevate stuff to a global level, because all my clients, all the third-party apps that everybody uses, Adobe and stuff, instead of doing it by environment, do it globally. That helps.
So, what we were doing is kind of weekly review of what was going on, and we're like, why is this workload not minimizing, or why do we feel like we're repeating these? And we realized, okay, we need to course correct. And it was a matter of, well, do we do the training? Do we still do this in-house, or do we just lean on Cyber Heroes? I kind of look at it as kind of a commoditized service similar to a SOC.
Okay.
Right? Like we're not going to have an in-house SOC. We're going to outsource that. And then when it comes to keeping policies shaped well for our clients with ThreatLocker, ThreatLocker knows best how to do that, right?
Yeah.
And so I completely appreciate your approach of wanting to know how to do it all, so you're not having to use them as a crutch. I think that's valuable too. But you kind of mentioned yourself, if you grow a little more, you want to weigh, where is your time most valuably spent, and if you do start getting tight on time, do you want to let these ThreatLocker alerts stack up, potentially frustrate a client because they're not getting maybe you're not getting to them as fast as you used to, right?
Yep. Let's pivot real quick to some of the things that got announced today. And for the first part of the presentation, I thought that it was really just enhancements of stuff they were already doing. Of course, upgrading technically the unified threat reporting and stuff, making it faster. That's all great. But the things that really popped out to me was the web control and the user store, which I kind of thought the application whitelisting was sort of that, but putting together, the camera just changed on me, putting together a user store where if a user requests a new app, and then they have the option to look at, here's all the apps that are already approved, for them to be able to go in, download it, install, and do all that stuff. That's huge.
That's extremely huge, and what I love for that is it really covers a gap that we've been trying to figure out how to fill, really around building an application policy for the client, right? In an ideal world, you're detecting all the apps that a client's using, and you're meeting with them to help understand, first of all, who's responsible for managing these apps, right? There's some client-managed apps that you might never touch, like online banking or something, right? Like you're never going to manage that, but it's in use.
You mean like
right?
the Panini checkout?
So like what's all out there, who's responsible for managing it from an onboarding, offboarding perspective, and is it even allowed, right? And if it is allowed for everyone? Is it allowed for certain departments, or and it's hard to spend the time getting all that done and working with your client, or even getting them to want to show up to the meeting sometimes. And so in comes ThreatLocker, and you're like, all right, fine, I'll just build out what's allowed, not allowed in ThreatLocker, and I'll just enforce it that way, right? Well, part of this application policy process that we should be involved with our clients, is really, that allows us to pass over the understanding of what apps are allowed or not allowed to management of the client. And then ultimately, the management manages the employees and helps them understand that. So in a typical scenario, you'd have an employee that feels like they need one app without realizing there's another app that the company already uses to perform that same task. And And where is that communication for the end user, right? Well, now we can automate that whole process in ThreatLocker. So we can now predefine and give access to apps that are allowed that the user may not have had originally, and cut down on a lot of end user frustration of wanting to blame IT because they can't get their work done, or going to the manager, which then gets upset they got interrupted by an employee about IT, and then the manager's mad at you, right? You know, even the managers don't want to deal with IT.
Right.
And so yeah, I love that kind of, nope, sorry, this is blocked, but here is what you can use to get the same job done.
And it doesn't require a phone call.
Doesn't require a phone call, and it's all logged. And I think it complements well. I mean, not everyone's using Company Portal from Intune, right? But that's if you ask what would Microsoft do, right? Well, Microsoft has something similar, where ThreatLocker takes it an extra layer. Is it's also helping shape policies around those, right? So, you know, Microsoft's company store just gives you access to the app. Well, that's going to get blocked by ThreatLocker if you don't have a policy to allow that app.
Yep.
And so this knocks that out, kind of two birds, one stone.
Yeah. Nice.
So what were some cool things that you thought about when you were thinking about the user store?
Well, that was just it. It was just having a repository of already approved apps that they could just go and grab. You know, it still doesn't alleviate the QuickBooks problem that we always have, but you know, for organizations where a new user comes in and they have all these apps in their head that they've used, and they're like, well, I'll just download and install this. The best way to counter that is to have a store and then have the business already aware that when a new user starts, part of that orientation package should include the computer part that says, if you need apps, look here.
Yep. Yeah, 100%.
That makes it so much easier. So that was the first thing that came up the user store. The web control, I'm kind of interested in. I don't know. I guess from my perspective, it did not translate when Danny was explaining it, although I know that he was saying that, there's that thing again, that we need to go beyond DNS and have a combination of that with application/web listing, kind of the same way. So that'll be interesting. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so this is filling a gap for us. I don't know that I've ever been 100% happy with how we're handling DNS filtering. It got even harder now that everything's encapsulated in HTTPS, because you have to be able to catch the traffic at certain layers to even view it, you know, and in some cases even slow down the traffic. It's got to unencrypt the packet, read it, you know, re-encrypt it. So that seemed kind of clunky, and there's like single points of failure there, right? I mean, if you can do it by proxy, I've seen it done that way, but that's a single point of failure. You do it by DNS, that's a single point of failure too. And what I love about ThreatLocker's approach is they already have this network control module built into their agent, right? That's you know, inherent in the system, you know, keeping an eye on network traffic. And so what they've done is they're actually taking this need for proper DNS filtering and control and using the network control component, which isn't a proxy or a DNS change at that point. Yeah. And then what does that do? So where's the value there? I mean, when you think about ring fencing, we've now, you know, and with one of their other feature updates they have today, Insights, where it shows the process tree and everything of what it's trying to do, it now shows what websites it's calling out to as well. Because applications aren't necessarily reaching out to IP addresses, which network control can see and handle. They're also, you know, most of the time they're reaching out to DNS,
right?
Because you don't want to be locked into a certain IP, right? We all know why DNS exists, and so now we're able to to understand even a better fingerprint of what an application's doing in regards to what websites it's reaching out to, and then build better ring fencing policies based on that. So if we ever see an application reaching out to some new website that it shouldn't be, you can block that, right? There's the traditional DNS filtering capabilities like categorization, we saw that, right, where you can block categories. Malicious sites, parked domains,
which
maybe,
is your typical,
right?
control that's been, built into firewalls for a long time.
Yep. And then the other thing is, so the web control is I gave Danny a hard time about this, and he quickly fired back. But I said, technically your web control module is a default allow. Did you catch that? And he's like, oh, you could make it default deny, and I'm like, oh, sure. The clients would really love that, right?
Yeah. Yep, they would.
But that being said, it also has the ability to learn, right? So if you did want to, with a traditional DNS product, you're never going default deny, right? That's just asking for trouble, right? There's no way. But what if you had the ability to learn everything that needs to be accessed, and then set up a default deny around that, right? Or they're going to be building this out further, but let's say you have a client that doesn't want G Suite accessed at all, right? They just know this shouldn't be accessed. Well, G Suite doesn't just use one URL, right?
No,
it's got multiple different ones. It's a cloud platform, right? So they'll eventually have this baked in where you can just toggle G Suite you want to block. But for now, you could literally learn all the sites G Suite's using, and then create a single policy around just blocking G Suite, right? So the traditional DNS filtering products, when you're dealing with your whitelist, blacklist, it's URL by URL, individual, very cumbersome to manage. And so the minute you think about wanting to block G Suite, you got to figure out all the URLs it's using and then enter them one by one. And then they're not really grouped together to tell you, oh, these are all here because of G Suite. You know what I mean?
Right. And if they change, you don't know they change.
Yep.
I mean, that's a monumental task. You don't want to have to check every so often to see, hey, did they change? Because they might move a server. And not tell you. So
I think the other thing that's cool about web control, just because I'm a single source of truth guy, is it all shows up in the unified audit, right? So you can think about, if you've got network control enabled, all that extra visibility you're getting around network traffic, it's just missing the DNS aspect of that, and now that adds that.
All right. So now let's get to one of the controversial things where even Danny at one time wasn't believed to, by many, to be incorporating an EDR type device into his platform, and here we are with ThreatLocker Protect, that is,
or Detect,
which is, it's now, I mean, yes, in the early days it probably was, I'm not going to use it, but now it looks fully grown up. What do you think?
So yeah, Danny's original position on EDR is that, it wasn't really needed with the ThreatLocker platform, because it literally prevents the actions from happening that you would need an EDR for in the first place, right? I think it speaks volumes when he talked about the fact that he calls his MDR team the configuration police, because most of the alerts they're getting from a SOC perspective, like a traditional third-party SOC that's managing your EDR for you, right, providing MDR services, they could have been prevented with a configuration change in ThreatLocker.
Right.
So, ThreatLocker does, how it's different is it lives more in the protect pillar, right? Whereas traditional EDR, it really just lives in the detect and respond pillars. And so
I explain it to my customers this way. If the alarm inside your house went off because a burglar opened up your bedroom door, that's a little too late, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah. Completely. Like, how did the burglar even get in there in the first place?
If your doors were locked, your windows were tied, the alarm was on the window as opposed to, your bedroom, that'd be a whole better thing. And then it's like, well, if you're in a gated community, then they've got to get through the guard gate. So that's kind of how I've it's probably not the best explanation, but they understand it.
Yeah, and I think what happened is as Danny was building out this MDR team, and as they were trying to understand and look at like what are we actually getting as a SOC to address, he mentioned today 70% of its configuration fixes that could be done. That other 30%, I would imagine, is identifying the fact that while ThreatLocker is a default deny, there are a chain of allowed policies you could have set up, right? Where if if certain actions were performed in a certain order, it's indicative of a threat actor playbook, right?
Yep.
And so you might, while you might have the individual things allowed, right? I can run PowerShell, right? You can do these individual things. The minute you start stacking them up in a certain order, it looks malicious.
Yes.
And so what he's really added to really bring that kind of EDR technology in, and where I feel like we can call it a true EDR, but again, it does so much more than a true EDR, is the fact that you can now start to build that perfect mousetrap of understanding, hey, even though these things individually are allowed, I know that if they happen in a certain order or a series, that might be malicious. So we want to detect if that's happening and then respond.
Yes.
Right?
Well, kind of behavioral monitoring as well. All of these things, like you said, in and of themselves individually, but if they're put together in a certain way, then there must be a certain behavior that's happening that you've got to monitor.
Yeah, and it could be an insider threat,
Right.
right? You still, so we hope it's not that. We hope it's someone that had, their account was compromised and it's a threat actor. But I think, insider threats are a thing too. And they brought that up actually in the dark web session they had here. Colin did a great job of kind of explaining the dark web and how there's employees selling their credentials to access to company data.
Yeah.
And at that point, other than maybe conditional access, where they're coming from a different location, it looks just like the employee getting it, right? And there's really no brute force attempt or anything because the credentials were just handed over.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sorry, I'm watching your wife in the audience there. She looks bored.
she's very happy over there. What are you talking about?
She smiles now.
Yeah.
Are they good? I need to approve those before they go out.
Yeah.
All right. And for the audience that's watching, come on. We do live. This is how we do. We're posing for a picture now. All right.
It's my beautiful wife, Michelle.
I can't see her.
Well, just in case you're wondering.
What's happening now? It must be a break coming up there. All right. Well, I think I've asked all the questions I could think of. I mean, we didn't even talk about the 365 feature they added there, but what else is happening for you guys? Now, actually, let's go this way. You flew from the other side of the country.
Yes, San Luis Obispo, California.
So are you making a vacation out of this?
This one, no. And the only reason is because we just moved into a new office, literally
Okay.
last week. And so we need to get back to getting settled in the new office.
Okay.
And then we also didn't bring our daughter. Typically, if we're going to make a vacation out of it, we'll bring our daughter with us. So maybe next year.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely a vacation spot, right?
Oh, yeah. It's Florida.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you have all that stuff over there, too.
Yeah, I do. Well, I like the humidity. So what was funny is I came here and I did not bring enough warm clothes because I was thinking,
You didn't check the
Florida.
weather?
Well, I just assumed Florida doesn't get cold.
Florida,
I don't know.
February, hot. Yeah. This is February. I have to explain to people. We have our winter, our primary winters in January,
Okay.
and then we have a cool season, and then we have a secondary drop off of usually 1 or 2 days in February, and this was it.
Okay.
And then we'll be in our spring from now and until the end of March, and then we go into summer.
Yeah.
Actually, rainy season then summer.
Yeah, I do like that it's in Florida. I mean, there's other California. I don't know if there's really too many event locations that I see pop up. Do you see conferences in California?
I ignore anything west of the Mississippi.
Yeah.
So I've been alerted to Dallas this year and Denver because of the PAX 8 event. I go there every year. But other than that, if it's west of the Mississippi or if I've got to change planes to get there, no.
No. Yeah, and you're lucky because most of the events tend to be over
come
here. You know, I'm the one always having to fly across the United States.
Yeah,
It feels like.
so Orlando, Atlanta, Chicago, probably the biggest three. I wouldn't mind, I've talked to people and thought, why don't we have conferences in St. Louis? That's the middle of the country.
Yeah.
Everybody should be able to fly there, but I don't know if St. Louis was built out to be a conference town.
Yeah.
And outside of the Arch, what do people go there to see?
Well, that might be a good thing sometimes. I mean, like I question the conferences they have in Vegas. There's just so many distractions there,
Yeah.
Especially people that rarely go to Vegas. Are they actually going to go to this conference and not get distracted and go off and do something else?
I wouldn't, but
Yeah.
so I've already been told that if I ever do go to Vegas for a conference, the wife is coming with me, which is odd because she's already been there. I haven't. So
Oh, you haven't been to Vegas?
I've not been to Vegas.
Oh, wow.
No.
It's we took my daughter this last time we went. She was 13 at the time. And you might wonder, well, you took your kid to
I was
Vegas?
gonna say,
But,
teach her to gamble early and be responsible.
It's there, she's into performing arts. So we went there and took her to a bunch
all the
of
shows, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
So entertainment-wise, depending on what type of entertainment you're into, it's not just all gambling.
Well, I've heard that about the shows, all the
Yeah.
people that have their residencies there, and I don't know, but those cost extra money, don't they? It's not like Disney where you get a all-in-one access pass.
That's fair, but they aren't as expensive as like going to a Broadway show in New York.
Okay.
And the production value is pretty good in Vegas. You get a pretty good show. They're typically, I think they're all indoors, right?
They better be.
Yeah. And so for me, I'd say live entertainment is a big one for us when we go to Vegas. I don't really gamble too much. If I do, it's Texas Hold'em poker. But then I'm like sitting there at a table, like there's just so much other things to do. There's great food there. So if you're talking about trying a variety of food and not having to break the bank, it's not really expensive.
Yeah, I'm not a foodie, so I don't worry about that.
Oh, okay, no foodie. I'm trying. How else can I attract you to Vegas? The nightlife. I guess that's if you're a night owl, Vegas.
I'm old, man. I don't go out.
Yeah, I'm just not doing a good job here. All right.
We'll continue this discussion.
Don't hire me, Vegas, to try to get people to come.
All right. Well, I see people piling in for the break here, and actually, I'm looking at my thing here. I've got to go interview Danny.
Oh,
so
that would be awesome.
See what I can get out of him. He's got to be tired.
Ask him about his Iron Man suit.
Oh, okay.
That he's dreading having to get into. He's told me he'll wear it for 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Yeah.
All right, that works. All right, well, Brian, thanks for stopping by, and we'll have to continue more conversations later, and good insights on the ThreatLocker stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad I could share and help rise the tides out there.
That's right. All right, folks, that's going to do it, and I'll be back with at least one more interview, maybe two. I saw some people hovering around the booth, but continuing our coverage here at Zero Trust World 2025 in Orlando. We'll see you soon. Holla.
Holla.